Dear learners, welcome you all to e-learning platform. This is week 5. In this week you are going to learn Ode to Autumn, another poem and the last ode written by John Keats. Me, Faisal Ahmed, as usual throughout the whole lecture. Faculty member, Department of English, World University of Bangladesh. Let's begin. About the poem Ode to Autumn. Ode to Autumn is written by a romantic poet John Keats, who is considered his final work in Keats' 1819 odes. This ode was composed in September 1819 and published in the very next year, 1820. The poem is divided into 3 stanzas with 11 lines in each of it. It describes a journey through the season from late crop maturation to harvest and the last days of October as winter approaches. First of all, we are going through the text and then major theme, summary and analysis, along with symbolism and imagery. First stanza, Ode to Autumn. Season of mist and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless. With fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to band with apples the most cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. Ripeness to the core, to soil the gourd and plump the hazel shells with the sweet kernel to set budding more, and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Second stanza. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twin flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner's thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. Wild bird clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn, among the rivers aloes burn aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering shallows twitter in the skies. That's the end of the poem. The literal meaning of autumn. Autumn in Europe is from September to November, with the peak fall month being October. It is when the fall foliage colors are at their best, and the peak summer season crowds have left for the year. To Autumn is an ode by the English romantic poet John Keats, written in 1819. It is the last of his 6 odes which include Ode to Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn, which are some of the most studied and celebrated poems in the English language. To Autumn is the last major work that Keats completed before his death in Rome in 1821, where the 25-year-old succumbed to tuberculosis. Summary: the poem praises autumn, describing its abundance, harvest, and transition into winter, and uses intense and sensuous imagery to elevate the fleeting beauty of the moment. Structure: To Autumn is a poem of 3 stanzas, each of 11 lines, like others of Keats' odes written in 1819. The structure is that of an odal hymn, having 3 clearly defined sections corresponding to the classical divisions of Greek classical divisions of strophe, antistrophe, and epode. Strophe, the first section; antistrophe, the second section; and epode is the third section of an ancient Greek choral ode, or of one division of such an ode. Themes in Ode to Autumn. The main themes in To Autumn are the power of the fecundity of natural world, the passage of time or the cycle of life, human consciousness, and the consolation of beauty. The cycle of life. The ode not only celebrates the beauty of autumn, but also, by focusing on its passing, also contemplates the transitory nature of life. Keats does not attempt to impose any didactic purpose on his readers. The focus is on the senses and on nature's defunctity. There is no explicit thought or philosophy in the poem, and the voice we hear never uses the word I. All created things pass away, and even the most beautiful. Keats' imagery implies what readers all know, that life is cyclical and new life will arise out of death and decay. The fecundity of the natural world. The Ode to Autumn is full of the feeling of nature's generosity. The combination of labor, delight, and natural wealth offer the impression of man happy and at peace with the world in which he lives. Man is not the dominant force in the scenes depicted. The imagery stresses the astonishing variety of nature, the profusion of crops, the flowers, the clouds, the lambs, the whistling robin, even the cloud of gnats. Next theme, human consciousness. Nature is abundant but unconscious. Man alone can understand the significance of all this profusion. Only man can lament the passing of the year at the same time as looking forward to the future, rebirth and renewal. As of often in Keats, there is a fusion of joy in present beauty and also pain, as the poet serenely contemplates the transience of everything in nature. Imagery and symbolism in To Autumn. In stanza 2, autumn is personified, and like the sun and autumn in stanza 1, is actively involved in the season's task, mowing, gleaning, etc. The image of autumn is gleaner, is active. The reader feels the weight and balance of her burden. The enjambment allows the sense to move from one line to another as the gleaner crosses the plank bridge. In stanza 3, the day, like the year, is seen as dying. However, the visual effect is beautiful. The day is bloomed by the rosy light reflected from the clouds, which also tints the bare, dead stubble fields. Bloom is a Keats coinage which unites the associations of spring when flowers blossom with the bloom on autumn fruits. Originally, Keats wrote, while a gold cloud gilds the soft dying day, but the change to bloom is immeasurably richer and more resonant. Analysis of To Autumn. To Autumn is one of the last poems written by Keats. His method of developing the poem is to heap up imagery typical of autumn. His autumn is early autumn. when all the products of nature have reached a state of perfect maturity. Autumn is personified and is perceived in a state of activity. In the first stanza, autumn is a friendly conspirator working with the sun to bring fruits to a state of perfect fullness and ripeness. In the second stanza, autumn is a thresher sitting on a granary floor, a reaper asleep in a grain field, a gleaner crossing a brook, and lastly a cider maker. In the final stanza, autumn is seen as a musician, and the music which autumn produces is as pleasant as the music of spring, the sounds of gnats, lambs, crickets, robins, and swallows. The ending of the poem is artistically made to correspond with the ending of a day. And gathering swallows twitter in the skies. In the evening, swallows gather in flocks preparatory to returning to their nests for the night. And that's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for being with me. Goodbye.